Good day, grade 9 learners. This is Teacher Lester, aka Sir Les, and I welcome you all to another fun and meaningful learning. If you are new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe and hit notification bell for you to be updated of new uploaded videos. For today's video, we will be discussing about a topic under the component of arts, and this topic is actually discussed in the second quarter of your module. The title of our discussion for today is all about arts of the Renaissance and Baroque periods. What are we waiting for? Let's get this discussion started. And for us to be well directed, here are the most essential learning competencies. First, identifies distinct characteristics of arts during the Renaissance and Baroque periods. Second, identifies representative artists from Renaissance and Baroque periods. Third, compares the characteristics of artworks produced in the different art periods. And fourth, creates artworks guided by techniques and styles of the Renaissance and Baroque periods. For our first topic, which is arts of the Renaissance period, here are our focused. Definition of Renaissance. Characteristics of the period. Characteristics of Renaissance art, and famous Renaissance artists and artworks. Let us now proceed to the definition of Renaissance. Renaissance comes from the word renaître, which means rebirth. This period happened in the year 1400 to 1600. The characteristics of the period. Renaissance was a period of economic progress. The period stirred enthusiasm for the study of ancient philosophy and artistic values. Italian Renaissance began in the late 14th century. It was an era of great artistic and intellectual achievement with the birth of secular art. The focus was on realistic and humanistic art. And here are the characteristics of Renaissance art. First, the Renaissance was a resurrection of human ideals. Second, the Renaissance brought the resurrection of naturalism. Third, Renaissance artists added their originality to their crafts. Fourth, Renaissance craftsmen depicted non-religious topics. Fifth, Renaissance art was exclusive. Sixth, Renaissance paintings ventured into Greek and Roman culture. Seventh, Renaissance artists became specialists at their crafts. Class, remember that Renaissance art was characterized by accurate anatomy, scientific perspective, and deeper landscape. For the last topic in Renaissance art, we have famous Renaissance artists and artworks. First artist was Michelangelo di Lodovico Buonarroti Simoni. He was born in the year 1475 and died in the year 1564. Michelangelo was an Italian sculptor, painter, architect, and poet. He was considered the greatest living artist in his lifetime, and since then, he was considered as one of the greatest artists of all time. And here are the famous artworks of Michelangelo. First one is Pieta. Pieta as a theme in Christian art, depiction of the Virgin Mary supporting the body of the dead Christ. We also have David and Moses. Second artist was Leonardo di Ser Piero da Vinci. He was born in the year 1452 and died in the year 1519. Leonardo da Vinci was a painter, architect, scientist, and mathematician. He was popularized in the present times through the novel and movie Da Vinci Code. He was known as the ultimate Renaissance man because of his intellect, interest, talent, and his expression of humanist and classical values. Here are the famous paintings of Leonardo da Vinci. First one is Mona Lisa, a figure of a woman dressed in the Florentine fashion of her day and seated in a visionary, mountainous landscape, is a remarkable instance of Leonardo da Vinci's sfumato technique of soft, heavily shaded modeling. Second one is The Last Supper, and the third one is The Adoration of the Magi. In addition, Mona Lisa is the most famous portrait painting of all time, while The Last Supper is the most reproduced religious painting of all time. The third artist was Raffaello Sanzio di Urbino. He was also known as Raphael. He was born in the year 1483 and died in the year 1520. Raphael was an Italian painter and architect of the High Renaissance period. His work was admired for its clarity of form and ease of composition, and for its visual achievement of interpreting the divine and incorporating Christian doctrines. Some of his most famous artworks were The Transfiguration. The Transfiguration of Jesus is a story told in the New Testament when Jesus is transfigured and become radiant in glory upon a mountain. Second was the Sistine Madonna, and the third one was the School of Athens. And the last famous art which we should not forget during the Renaissance period was Donato di Nicoli di Beto Bardi, also known as Donatello. He was born in the year 1386 and died in the year 1466. Donatello was one of the Italian great artists of the period. He was an early Renaissance Italian sculptor from Florence. He is known for his work in bas-relief, a form of shallow relief sculpture. And here are the famous artworks of Donatello. First is David. At the time it was created, it was the first known freestanding nude statue produced since ancient times. Second artwork was the statue of St. George, and the third famous artwork was the Feast of Herod. Have you heard about the Ninja Turtles? Actually, they are named after the artists of the Renaissance period. And now let's proceed to the arts of the Baroque period. In this topic, we will be dealing with the four subtopics: definition of Baroque, characteristics of the period, characteristics of Baroque music, and famous Baroque artists and artworks. Let's first discuss the definition of Baroque. The term Baroque was derived from the Portuguese word barroco, which means irregularly shaped pearl or stone. It describes a complex idiom and focuses on painting, sculpture, as well as architecture. Baroque is a period that happened in the year 1600 and then ended up in the year 1800. Here are the different characteristics of the period. After the idealism of Renaissance and the slightly forced nature of mannerism, Baroque art above all reflects the tensions of the age, notably the desire of Catholic Church in Rome to reassert itself in the wake of the Protestant Reformation. The Roman Catholic Church highly encouraged the Baroque style to propagate Christianity, while the aristocracy used Baroque style for architecture and arts to impress visitors, express triumph, power, and control. And now, let's proceed to the characteristics of Baroque art. The Baroque arts were especially marked by the several emperors and Catholic monarchs from the entire Europe who had an important interest in the success of the Catholic Church. So the royal courts of Spain and France commanded a great number of architectonic designs, painting, and sculptures during the General Catholic campaign. And to be more specific, here are its characteristics. First one is tenebrism, contrasting light and darkness. Second are realism and naturalism. Painters hugged reality in their art and used unique, common details from the day-to-day life. Third, in terms of lines, it is of popular knowledge that the lines help to transmit movement and they were frequently used in Baroque pieces. Fourth is hour. Plenty of artists that used the Baroque style knew the concept of time and used it from transmitting the force of nature and how time was part of the process of life. Other characteristics of Baroque art. Baroque was a period of artistic styles in exaggerated motion, drama, tension, and grandeur. The style started in Rome, Italy, and spread to most of Europe. Also, Baroque painting illustrated key elements of Catholic dogma, either directly in biblical works or indirectly in imaginary or symbolic work. The gestures are broader than Mannerist gestures, less ambiguous, less arcane, and mysterious. Baroque sculpture, typically larger than life size, is marked by a similar sense of dynamic movement along with an active use of space. Baroque architecture was designed to create spectacle and illusion. Thus, the straight lines of the Renaissance were replaced with flowing curves. Here are the famous Baroque artists and artworks. First one was Michelangelo Merisi or Amerigi da Caravaggio. He was born in the year 1571 and died in the year 1610. He was an Italian artist who wanted to deviate from the classical masters of the Renaissance. He was an outcast in his society because of his own actions and the lack of modesty and reverence for religious subjects in his own paintings. Here are his famous paintings. First one is Conversion of St. Paul. According to the New Testament, an event in the life of Paul, the apostle, that led him to cease persecuting early Christians and to become a follower of Jesus. Second is the Supper at Emmaus. Third one is the Entombment of Christ. Second artist was Gian Lorenzo Bernini. He was born in the year 1598 and died in the year 1680. He was an Italian artist and the first Baroque artist. He practiced architecture and sculpture, painting, stage design, and was also a playwright. He was also the last in the list of the dazzling universal geniuses. Here are the artworks of Bernini. First one is Ecstasy of Saint Teresa. Saint Teresa of Avila was a Spanish nun, mystic, and writer during the Counter-Reformation. Second artwork is David, and the third one is an architecture which is called as the Piazza San Pietro. Third artist was Peter Paul Rubens. He was born in the year 1577 and died in the year 1640. He was a Flemish Baroque painter. He was well known for his paintings of mythical and figurative subjects, landscapes, portraits, and Counter-Reformation altarpieces. And here are the artworks of Rubens. First one is the portrait of Helen Forment. He was the second wife of Baroque painter Peter Paul Rubens. She was the subject of a few portraits by Rubens and also modeled for other religious mythological paintings. Second one is the Samson and Delilah. And the third one is the landscape with the tower. Fourth artist was Rembrandt Harmenszoon van Rijn. He was born in the year 1606 and died in the year 1669. He was a brilliant Dutch realist, painter, and etcher. He was generally considered as one of the greatest painters and printmakers in European art. He followed no faith, but was interested in spiritual values and often chooses religious subjects. His most famous work is Self-Portrait in Old Age. His concept of himself continued to deepen in grasp and subtlety while his technique grew more daring. Second is Samson and Delilah, and third one is The Landscape with the Tower. Last famous artist was Diego Velázquez. He was born in the year 1599 and died in the year 1660. Velázquez of Spain developed out of the Baroque. He was one of the finest masters of composition and one of the most important painters of the Spanish Golden Age. He worked out solutions to pictorial problems of design that transcend the style of any period. One of his most famous paintings is Las Meninas, or the Maids of Honor. He created this work for years before his death and served as an outstanding example of the European Baroque period of art. Another one is the Surrender of Breda and the Triumph of Bacchus. And that ends our discussion on Baroque period of art. For your performance task, we have the activity collage making. The artistry of early Filipinos was expressed through carving and painting designs in their churches. And so here is the procedure of your performance task. First, research on the different Philippine churches with Baroque designs. Second, collect pictures and label each. Digitized output is allowed. Third, make an album out of it and lay it out on the bond paper. You have to answer these reflective questions after doing the activity. First question, what are the elements of art shown in the pictures you pasted? Second, what are the characteristics of the churches that you choose to consider and classify as Baroque? And that ends our discussion. If you are new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe and hit notification bell for you to be updated of new uploaded videos. Don't also forget to like this video and share it to your friends. This has been Sir Lester saying, let's dream and make it happen. See you all on my next video. Goodbye!